some of it goes back to what you were saying earlier, professionalism. It's not just that, bringing up the writers, but, fact-checking. How much of that is done on the web? I mean, I know we don't spend the time fact-checking online stories. Almost nothing compared to what we do in print. And, some of the things are turning around so fast you don't have time to do it. And then you certainly don't have the staff resources to, magazines in particular, but newspapers as well. Fact-checking that goes into a lot of those, I had no idea until I started working about it. Just every little detail, checking notes and calling the people you're interviewing, and every little thing they try to get right. And that just doesn't happen by and large on the web.
I disagree. I fact-check pretty heavily when I'm even writing the smallest story. I want to make sure that it was that actor in that film or that studio, and there are the resources. Wikipedia, gets a bad rap, but IMDb, which isn't perfect either, but we have those resources.
Okay. That's one type of fact-checking, but I'm talking about calling up someone who your writer just interviewed and saying, were you born on this date? Did you say this? Would you do this before that? There's a level of fact-checking I had no idea even existed.
Yes, but at the same time, do you do that fact-checking with the smallest stories? And yes, you do.
In print, but not on the web.
Not on the web, but I think that we do the best that we can. There's a speed there, obviously, but at the same time, I don't feel we're sloppy. I would actually, if I had to choose between the two, I would choose a copy editor over a fact-checker, because I'm making it sound like facts aren't important. They are. But at the same time, we have sources. We double-check with things. We do not make claims we can't support. If anything, we try to avoid it, and we say, I believe this might be happening, or...
Well, the other thing that happens online, you've got, whatever your readership is, fact checkers immediately there, ready to call bullshit on you in half a second. Online, there is an interactivity,
and you can correct it right away.
Exactly, but they'll say, like, if you get the wrong actor's name, I guarantee you there's some 14-year-old kid who's going to bust your ass the second he can, call you an idiot because you don't know this.
I love Jimmy.
Yeah, exactly. and I've had it the other way. I've written freelance years ago, and some of the fact-checking that went on at one of the free weeklies that I wrote for consisted of them calling me and asking me if what I wrote was right. And I'm like, yeah, of course. Did you write? Yeah, I wrote that. Yeah, that's what I said. So, some of the fact-checking was lazy, and they thought they were doing due diligence, but it was just an intern calling up saying, it said that film grossed $2 million. Is that right? And I'm like, yeah, of course it is. I made it up, but yeah, sure, it's true. So some of the fact-checking wasn't as rigorous as it could have been, and obviously New York Times up to that level had problems with Jason Blair and all that. So it's like, I get it, and I think that the standard's there, but I also think the benefit of the web is they'll call you on it immediately, and you can correct it or strike it and change it.
And that's fine for film news, but if you're doing major political coverage, then you better get it right the first time.
That's exactly right.
And again, it's resources. There's nothing inherent about print that makes fact-checking or copy editors any more suited. It's just, you need the revenue to hire that level of staff.
And I believe that'll come in time. I believe that web is the long-term game, but at the same time, I don't think that print's going to keel over tomorrow. And again, back to what I said at the beginning, there's a way that they can, I think they can coexist, and I think both sides can help each other.
And those things may fall apart. If everybody's got a tablet e-reader thingy, and it's just as handy to read a paper, magazine, whatever, by flipping electronic pages, and it's just as easy to read, and you get big, giant ads. I think the distinction might start to fall apart.
Yeah, what's interesting to me is for years, any kind of publication, newspaper, magazine, they'd always say that's going to be yesterday's news, or tomorrow will be rabbit fish. The irony is that, again, the instantaneous nature of the web is something we take for granted, but its archival value makes it actually more valuable, so that, and maybe that's where the money is going to be. I know the New York Times will charge you if you try to research something beyond a certain date, that it's the archive ability, if that's such a word, the web that gives the stories permanence, so that if you wrote a story, it would always be the paper of record, and if you went to the library and got the microfiche and did all the research like they do in a movie when they're trying to discover who the killer was 20 years ago, you could do that. But right now, you can look up a story that was in the AJC, if anybody reads that anymore, 3 weeks ago, that you didn't used to be able to do that conveniently, and it wouldn't be on microfiche yet, so you'd have to go to the library and find the hard copy of the paper and hope it was still there. Right now, you can punch up a few keywords on your computer and hopefully it'll come up. So there's something to be said about it giving the official, the papers and the printed matter a sense of permanence that it didn't used to have, that people might take more for granted, even though we think about these great writers writing for the ages. In fact, it's only the fact that the work's archived that makes it valuable to us today. So there is something to be said for what the web has done as far as keeping the writing current and making it relevant and being able to check up on things that were 5 and 7 years old but are still archived.
And I think that not only the ability to archive, but links. Links are huge. You mentioned something in print. You can go and find another print publication that mentions it, but we can link back to our stories. We can link to other stories. And I think that definitely helps on an ethical level when you can instantly give credit and say, this is where this came from. And that leads another person to another site. And that's why exclusives are so important to Collider, because the more exclusives we get, and the other sites will link to us because it's good news, the readers will start just coming to us first, and they're like, they won't leave the other site, but they'll know that Collider's where they can get big news first. And so I definitely think linking is absolutely essential, and that's a huge advantage right on the web. And it's something I like to do because, I mean, you learn more things trying to find out more information.
And regardless of web's impact on sort of the system of development of writers, it's made all writers better writers because they can research everything. They can read other great writing more easily.
And steal it more easily.
There's that. They can be found out more
Don't
easily.
judge.
That's exactly right. Getting busted for stealing.